want you to know how much I appreciate you being here. At What's on Your Plate podcast, we often discuss really challenging topics because, well, much of what's on our plates is often really heavy. Is there sadness? Yes. Heartache sometimes? For sure. Are you maybe triggered at times by what you hear? I have no doubt. It's been said, though, that the things that cause us the biggest pause, those things we want to turn away from because we simply can't bear the pain of it, are exactly the things we should lean further into. Our purposes often come from our pain, our heartaches, and even our traumas. My guest today is talking about a debilitating disease that claimed the life of her daughter. You won't believe what Rachel Brazil has overcome to ensure kids like her daughter, Emberly, have a chance to smile. Let's hear her story. So today we are here to talk about the legacy of one beautiful little girl, Emberly, forever 7. She is being remembered in a way that will help other children like her find joy through play. Her mom, Rachel, is here to talk to us more about Emberly and exactly what she is working to accomplish. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, you're somebody really special to have in this space today because it's not easy to talk to people about the purpose they have found within their pain or their heartache. And right off the bat, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a bit about what brought you to this space today? Why are we here talking?
Well, I have happily found a space for my heart to kind of put the grieving into something good. I started a nonprofit back in December called Emberly Smiles in memory of my daughter, Emberly. It was a challenge I didn't think I could do, but I think she's pushing me along the way to accomplish this. So I started a nonprofit that puts communication boards up in local playgrounds. Emberly was nonverbal. She had something called Rett syndrome. We didn't know until she was just over a year. We found out that she would probably not walk, probably wouldn't talk, and then she slowly lost the use of her hands. So going to the playground and being able to play with her was something she absolutely enjoyed, but definitely was a challenge for the mom and the dad and the sister and the friends. So we found a way that we could communicate with her using the same pictures that will be on the boards in local playgrounds.
That's just amazing work. I can't wait to see these boards up and being put to use by children like Emberly. Can you tell us, for those of us that aren't familiar, what is Rett syndrome?
So Rett syndrome is a very debilitating syndrome that mostly affects little girls. There are a few boys. The last I knew, there were about 10 around the world. Most boys won't live to be born, but there's about 1 in 10,000 girl births. Girls are born with this. It's not hereditary, it's genetic. And then you will slowly figure it out, usually between 1 and maybe 3. They kind of go through a regression of skills. So Emberly was just starting to crawl, kind of like an army crawl, and she was saying a few words: mom, dad, dog, and she was using her hands. She could eat, she could drink. But then slowly we started to notice around a little after 1 that she was losing her words. And the first thing the doctor thought, must be something with autism. So she sent us right down to Riley's to get checked out. We were in the doctor's office maybe 3 minutes, and she said, I think I know what this is. I treat other patients with this. Something called Rett syndrome. My husband was familiar. There's another family in Crown Point that he had already been doing some police assistance with some of their events. So he knew right away. I had no idea. And I thought, this doctor's crazy. Like, she doesn't even know my child. She just met her. But we did the blood work testing for it. And sure enough, we found out on April Fool's Day of all days, that she had Rett syndrome. And that explained a lot of things for us. It slowly takes away their ability to walk if they can, to talk, to use their hands. And then it comes with apraxia, can come with seizures. There's a lot of girls on feeding tubes. Emberly had a special diet. We had to find special ways to communicate. We had lots of teeth grinding, sleep issues. It just came with a lot of hard things for her.
Yeah, I can only imagine how challenging that must have been to hear such a, debilitating diagnosis was being assigned to one of your nearest and dearest has to be just world shaking for sure. You had mentioned to me in a previous conversation that one of the primary ways that Emberly communicated with you was through her eyes or her gaze. And is that one of the ways that these boards are going to be designed in a way for children to be able to communicate like they're already comfortable doing?
Yes. So some children with Rett syndrome have very good eye control, and for some it's more difficult, but they do have these awesome computers that hers was called the Toby. There's different brands, but it has lots of pictures on it. And before you get to a computer, you usually start the children, we're starting a speech therapy using picture cards. So around our house were picture cards everywhere, on the cupboards, by her toy bin, by the TV. So Emberly could crawl around and use these picture cards to communicate with us. She'd hit the card, we'd know what she'd want. Then we slowly moved to this computer that had the same pictures, even more pictures, tons of pictures. You could make your own pictures. And then she would look at it with her eyes, and then it would speak for her. So the things that she learned to say on there were awesome. And it was wonderful to hear her form of her voice. We didn't have a clue that she loved Jasmine, but we're going to Disney World, and all of a sudden, all she talks about is Jasmine. So you better believe that we found Jasmine at Disney World. But these computers then, they're heavy, they're bulky, they're very expensive. Trying to take that to a park, sitting it on the wheelchair, but then she wants to get out of the wheelchair to play around, and they don't work great in the sun. So now you're here at the park, and if we can't use the computer, what's another way to communicate? Well, we go back to those picture cards that we already had used when she was younger. They're convenient. For me, it was not convenient because I was trying to be Emberly's hands, also support her walking at the playground. Now I'm supposed to hold these picture cards. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So a lot of times before we would go to the park, we would be sitting under Toby, and I would say, okay, we're going to get ready to go to the park. Let me know what you want to play on today. And, she might tell me she always wanted to do the swings, and she always wanted to go fast. But I didn't know once we got to the park what else she saw there, that she was like, hey, I want to do the slide or whatever. And I just didn't have the means to communicate with her, and I hated it. So it would have been wonderful to have one of these boards where, Emberly couldn't have touched it, but I could have walked her to the board, and I could have used eye gaze with her to figure out what she was trying to say, and what she wanted to play, or if she was all done, or if she needed the bat, whatever it was. So that would have made my life very happy, happier to be able to communicate with her that way. So I hope it does the same for others. It's not a talking board, like the computer, but it is just the symbols where children can either go up and touch them or use their eye gaze.
Yeah, I'm sure that having that tool in your back pocket would have increased the joy for both you and Emberly when you were out to play at the parks. And I have no doubt it's going to do that for other children as well. And just to help them feel more connected with their people,
Yes.
that they are like included and part of it, I'm sure, is something that will assist with that
Yes,
feeling. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's just going to be great to see. Who else in our communities do you see these boards helping, other than you had talked about how Rett syndrome is rather rare, but who else in our communities will be benefited from these boards?
Yes. So, when Emberly was younger and we were in speech therapy, even when she was at the early learning center, she was in a whole classroom full of other kids who also struggled with their speech. So there are many kids in our community, little ones who are just learning to talk, maybe might just be a little bit behind and working on their skills, to others children with autism or any other kind of nonverbal capacity that they just can't get their words out all the time, especially when you're at the park and you're excited or
Yeah.
mad or frustrated. But yes, so I definitely think that there is many individuals that could benefit from this. Just seeing all the people that had touched Emberly's lives that she was in groups with around the town.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something there at the end of that, where even if you're just mad or frustrated and can't get the words out, I mean, I think that's true for even just typical or quote unquote normal functioning children,
Mhm.
that they don't have the words or don't know how to use the words to say what they actually want. So the amount of people that these boards are going to help is truly just endless. And excuse me for some of my ignorance if I ask that, and it seems like an obvious question, but especially for children that are, or even adults, honestly, that are, living their lives with an impairment that doesn't allow them to communicate like you or I do. It's one of those things that if you are not living it, or if you don't know somebody that is living like that, you just might not be aware. It's like, if you don't know, you just don't know.
Absolutely. And that's nobody's fault. Like I said, we didn't have a clue that there was even assistance like this until we were in this world, having to
Mhm.
live it and then having to find a way to communicate. So unless you have a loved one or a friend, or you're aware of someone else that needs assistance when they communicate, you just don't know. A lot of people would say, well, Emberly can't talk, so why doesn't she sign to you? And it's like, well, now we're a whole nother level of, well, we can't use our hands. And oh,
Right.
okay, so there's a whole spectrum of people. One of the boards that we're putting in is actually going in Ohio, at a camp where Emberly used to spend sensory camp every summer. I'd
Mm.
take her there for a few days. I was there last week, and there actually was an older gentleman there, probably in his 50s, and he wanted to go on the merry-go-round. And he was in a wheelchair, and the helpers were helping him get around. And he looked at me and said, "Me, go." And I didn't know where he wanted to go. It took some conversating, but I thought, man, I can't wait till their board goes up, because he could have wheeled right over there and pointed to what he wanted. And then he could have told me, did he want to ride with other people? Did he want to ride by himself? Did he want to go slow? Did he want to go fast? So I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see that he's out here and he's trying to tell you and he's excited. So definitely. And I don't think, if you're not around others that need assistance like that, like I say, you don't know. And it's just a learning curve, I guess.
Yeah. Everybody's on their path of growing and evolving. And with that comes knowledge of things that you didn't have before, of course. And talking about these things is what creates solutions for them.
Mhm.
So once you are aware, and once you have or are living in these scenarios, doing something to solve the issues and help other people is ultimately what's going to create more awareness overall.
Yes.
Because there's going to be people that come up to these boards in the parks and just have no idea. And Emberly's beautiful face is on
Mhm.
these boards that are going to be installed. And then they're going to look that up and
Mhm.
find out even more information and how they can even help and assist and create more awareness. So it's just this whole like ripple effect of how can we be the good and put more just kindness and inclusion into the world.
Absolutely. I've been, and again, not to anyone's discredit, but even the cities that we've been to so far, the first conversation that we usually have is, well, we're making our parks accessible. We have the turf, we have, wheelchairs can get on our play equipment. I'm like, I bet you are, I bet it's great. But here's another thing that you probably haven't thought about, and most of them haven't. So I love that a lot of people we've talked to are just willing to say, okay, yeah, I didn't think about this. Let's add it in. What can we do?
Yeah. Once you know better, you can do better for sure. I want to talk to you a little bit too about just the strength of you as a human, and in particular, a mom. I know that right in the midst of losing your daughter, you were going through your own very real, very personal health struggle. And I think just you are just an amazing example of somebody that minimizes their own problems because they are helping or involved in somebody else's. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you pulled strength from all of those experiences?
Sure. We were right in the midst of building a special home for Emberly, the one that we're living in now, right in the middle of COVID time. The world shuts down, and we sold our house and are moving in with my in-laws because our house isn't done yet. And at the exact same time, I find out that I have breast cancer. I felt a spot. I checked every month. In January, I kind of felt something. In February, I was like, it's a little bigger. I was 36, so I wasn't thinking anything. I thought maybe a cyst or something. I wasn't sure. My husband's like, you need to go to the doctor right away. So I went there, and yeah, I had a biopsy and found out pretty quickly that it was breast cancer. I was not sure how I was going to be able to do treatment and care for Emberly. Everything about Emberly is lifting. I mean, everything. You're doing everything for us. So I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Turns out the cancer surgery was not essential during COVID time. So I had to wait until June. We moved into our house May 1st. So we're kind of living here. We're doing our thing. I have my surgery scheduled for June. My mom came over to actually help with Emberly because they couldn't do any lifting of her. Neighbors would come down and help lift her when it was time to eat or bathe or whatever it was. So I just had the whole community of help. But when I got my cancer results back the week after surgery, I found out that it actually was a more aggressive type of cancer than they originally thought. So I was going to need to do chemo and radiation, which was not really in the plan from the beginning. It was very, very small. We thought the lumpectomy would just be okay. So then I had to kind of wrap my head around, okay, now how am I even going to go to chemo and radiation? I take Emberly to all of these doctor's appointments, therapies, school. I'm the right, what am I going to do here? June 30th was my surgery to get my port for chemo. And my husband drove me up to Chicago. My mother-in-law was here at the house with the girls. And we always said, hey, if Emberly sleeps in the morning, let her sleep. Like, she's not a good sleeper. Just let her sleep in, get some extra hours. And so about 8:45, my oldest daughter, Adeline, she's 13 now. She went in to check on her and said she was kind of moving around. And then she went back out to the living room, and something about 9 o'clock, she said, Emberly's got to get up. She'd been sleeping too long. So she went in to check on her, and she found her in there, and she said she was blue. And she had just been sleeping. I wasn't here for the rest of it, so I just get to know what the stories were told to me. But that was right when I was going into surgery. So my husband had to wait to tell me. And in the meantime, just waiting. They got her to the hospital, and she was just being kept alive by the machines. So thankfully, they kept her there long enough until we could get back from the hospital. So I got out of surgery, and the nurses kind of rushed me along. I thought it was kind of odd, but they took me right to the chapel where Mike was in the hospital, and the police department here had come up to get us and got us back so we could say goodbyes before the coroner came. It felt so fast, but I know it had probably been so long. So I don't know why it happened that way, other than Mike and I didn't get a say in anything. We weren't there to try anything. Mike's mom tried life support, CPR, but it was just too late. And I don't know if that was Emberly's way of, hey, I'm just in my bed and this is peaceful, but it made me not want to do my cancer journey after that, because it would have been way easier to just say, forget this. I'm going to go be with her. But then at the same time, I thought, man, I was in surgery. It could have been me. Why was it her and not me? Why did she get to go to heaven? I'm still here. So I think that made me want to push harder to say, hey, I'm here. What am I doing with my time? And how am I moving forward with that? I don't know.
That feels so just intimate and empowering are the two words that come to mind immediately when you share that part of your story, because the way that you came through all of that to do what you're doing now, to honor her and to help support other people like her, is absolutely your answer as to why it was her time and not yours. Because she couldn't have done that important work at 7. She needed you to do it. Right?
I know. I always say, like, it's crazy the people who knew Emberly. We would go somewhere and it's, oh, hi, Emberly. Oh, Emberly. I know Emberly. So I always think she made all of these connections that now help me spread all of this goodness that everyone's like, oh, of course, it's Emberly. And so I think she definitely pushes me with the strength to do these things, because her life was so hard, and I'm greedy to think that I want her to be here, because I know that little girl put on a happy face, but her days were hard. So it's not fair to say, oh, I need her here, but I just think, man, if she could do what she did, I can very much do what I did. And it's not that, I struggle with even the cancer part of my life. I don't connect with it. There's no emotion there. There's nothing, I think I've cried once over it. I've cried from pain from it, but that loss of part of me, that just doesn't, I don't have any connection to that. And I think all of my heart and all of my emotion was just put into her at that time, that I didn't have anything else to give out.
Yeah, your own personal crisis was irrelevant because you were just really focused on hers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can see how none of it would have mattered to you. Your own health at that point in time. Getting through the hardest of hard things that you and your family have journeyed through. How have you done that?
It's been hard. The hard part is living in the same house. There's 3 of us all grieving so differently.
Mhm.
There's been lots of therapy. There's been lots of arguments. There's been crying nights. There's been, more alcohol than probably needed. Like there's just been, depressing days. There's been days you're not getting out. There's very, very difficult. I think we all went into little depressing times at different times, which made it worse. But we just continue to be here for each other. And I got a lot of support. I did a lot of reading, just how to cope with where Emberly was and, why maybe things had happened the way that they did. And just staying supportive for each other, knowing that we're all on this journey together. And, we found a few groups of people who had also lost their children, which was helpful. I have yet to find the group of going through breast cancer when losing your child group. I don't know if that one's out there, but yeah, I think we found ways to honor her that made us feel really good. Emberly loved to travel. The girls just loved it. So to get out of the house, just to get away, over long breaks, we would go on vacation and we would always take something of Emberly's with us, whether it was the necklace hanging in the car. Usually I brought one of her like 50 pairs of earrings and we throw them in the water wherever we're at. There was a time in her life when you could only get her to smile by calling her Moana, because she thought she was her and she loved the water. She's like a fish. So we always seem to be somewhere near water that we share her things with. Don't tell, because I think we're littering.
I love that though, finding those joys and those delights that can still bring a smile to your face, remembering how it did the same for her.
Yes.
Is just so critical to stepping forward and moving through things with the purpose that you are. And always coming back to your why. Why was it her and not me? Type of thing. I think that any mother would struggle with that question, and the work you're doing is it for sure. And are you walking through this journey of advocacy now and inclusion on your own, or is your family part of that?
I actually have a board, so there's 5 of us.
Okay.
I have different people in the community that have been a part of my journey with this. One of the members used to be Emberly's one-on-one aide at school, which this would be perfect for this. Another was a mom I met whose son also has autism. So we had at one time tried to get our kids in a dance class together, which was kind of fun. Another is the neighbor across the street who has just been super supportive for me throughout this journey. And then I have another friend who's been fundraising there for us since the very, very beginning. I wanted to get members in the community that I thought would share my joy of wanting to get this out, but also the importance of what does this mean for me. But I also wanted to make sure that we could do good things in the community with our resources, because the community is what helped us when we needed it. When we were first diagnosed, I'm a teacher, Mike's a policeman. We didn't have the things at our fingertips that we could just go get for Emberly. We needed a wheelchair accessible van. We bought the van, but it's $18,000 to convert your van to be wheelchair accessible. So the community helped us fundraise for that. The computer that she used to talk with, it's $20,000. The community helped us fundraise for that. Even helping us find a spot to put our home on, needing a larger lot for a 1-story home for her, and finding a builder who was even willing to make some accommodations for us. So the community has just always been there for anything and everything we've ever needed. just reaching out saying, hey, what can we do? And I loved that feeling, that I just hope if it does the same feeling just for one family at a park, that will just make me so happy, because I'm grateful that now I'm in a place mentally and emotionally that I can give back to the community in a way. I think we were finding ways to try to spread Emberly's love. My older daughter actually has the Bulldog book stations around town. So we would always go on Emberly's birthday or Christmas, and we'd go to the bookstore all together, and we would buy whatever books Emberly would love. And I got a special little stamp for them. We'd stamp them, and then we'd put them in the book boxes. And then we started sharing them with Lake Street, where she went to school, so her friends could have some of, what would have been Emberly's favorite books. And so we've tried to find ways to keep spreading her joy, and even handing off some of her items in her room to other little girls or friends. And it just didn't seem like enough. I'm like, there's still something missing. Like, I need to do something else. So now that I have this going, I'm thinking this is the thing.
Yeah, it feels more like in line with the bigger purpose, probably.
Yes.
For sure. Tell us a little bit more about Emberly's Smiles nonprofit, and I think the events that you've recently had to help support it and support these boards.
Sure. Yeah, so we started in December. My board members were really sweet, because I said, hey, we're doing a fundraiser in January. Surprise. So we did a pajama prom at St. Matthias Church, where families could come and wear their pajamas, and we had an awesome DJ, and we danced the night away. We had raffles. We sold big purple bows, because if you know Emberly, she constantly had a bow on in her hair, a big one.
I see some behind you there.
Oh yes, I am in her room. Those are some of her bows.
I know our listeners can't see that, but Emberly is definitely vibing behind you there.
Yes. So our goal for that fundraiser, I wanted to raise enough just to do a sign. And at that time, the company we were using was about $1,200. Like, all right, if we could just raise $1,200, this would be great. Well, we raised almost $20,000 with that event. So we far exceeded the goal.
For sure.
The community,
which means more boards, right?
Yep. So we said, okay, then that's going to be our goal. Our goal for this year is going to be 10 boards. We started designing, how are we going to design the board? What will it look like? And then we're like, okay, it's time to go talk to some parks. And just through different connections, we started in Hobart, and she was like, yeah, I want 19 of these. We're going to put them up everywhere. And okay. So then it just kind of happened, ripple effect. And we were in St. John. We're doing 22 or 23 signs for them there. We've talked to Gary Parks. They would like some. We have 2 over, we'll be in Ohio now at the camp or Emberly went to, and then that same town, they'll put one outside in a park, so that when their residents aren't at the camp, they can go to the park and use it there. Yeah, and then we will have one going at the Lake County Fairgrounds. So it's just been this ripple of, okay, now we've got the ball rolling, we're designing. Every park is different. So with all the different equipment at the parks, I go in, I design them a new sign that looks like what they have. So if they have swings or monkey bars or a merry-go-round, that goes on the sign, so that everybody there can point to what is actually physically there instead of just a generic sign. We talk about where they would like it placed, a safe place, not near the parking lot or the road or the swings, or some cities want them actually on the playground equipment. So we've been working on that too. We have then started reaching out to how would we like local businesses to get involved with us with sponsoring the signs. So now we have a sponsorship form so that people can go on and get their logo put on our sign in local parks in their community. And we're just gonna keep going here.
It's so exciting to just envision this playing out at all these playgrounds for all these people to just be able to enjoy things better than what they currently are. the parks themselves, is there any investment or cost to the park to have these boards installed, or is that absorbed by the sponsorships and donations from the events of Emberly Smiles?
That there is no cost to the parks to do that at all. We take care of the costs. We actually use trade winds, which we love that we're using them to make our signs. And then they'll even install them if we need them to at the park. So we absorb all the costs for that. There's nothing that the parks have to do other than say, yes, we would like that.
Yeah. And just for those that don't know, what is Trade Winds?
It is a school. They have a sign shop, but they also have like a day camp. It caters to special needs. It's located in Maryville, but they are also a nonprofit. And then special needs individuals help to make the signs.
Very cool.
It's a very nice little circle that definitely goes along with our mission.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome to hear. Where else can we be doing better to help include and serve people that are not fully functioning? What about inside play places? Is there anything on the radar for Emberly's Smiles with that in the future?
I guess that's not something that I had considered until we had chatted a little bit. It definitely is something that should be, especially in the area that we live in.
Cold, like 8 months out of the year, it seems like. Yeah, so like, when it's cold and snowy, and some kids that maybe, what word would I use? Like typical functioning or full functioning, might venture out into those conditions. But especially if you are needing assistance to go play at a park, it's far less likely to happen in those cold, snowy months.
Absolutely. I don't know. One of the things that we've thought about, that we've started creating is even a questionnaire to go out to some of the families that I know. Emberly had a wonderful case manager through her Medicaid, and just sending it out that way to say, hey, can you shout out to other families? I know they said they service about 1,800 families just in our county. Just sending them out saying, hey, where do you guys go? Where do you play? Where do you frequent? If you don't go there, why don't you go there? What would make it easier for you to get out? What would make it more comfortable? Just giving us some ideas, because again, I'm only working with what I know was my daughter's disability, but I want to know, what do other parents look for? What do they need? Is it, for instance, my daughter did dance classes where I said we went with the other little boy, and I know that they had a special needs dance class. Maybe they have something that's more of a form of a smaller board that's mobile, that could go in that dance studio when they're using it or something. So I guess we haven't really thought of getting out of that box yet, but definitely getting some feedback on where are other places that would be good for this.
Yeah, and not to like overwhelm you. I mean, your nonprofit is so new. It's like 7 months old or something, right? 6 months old. And I'm like, what are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? But I mean, it's just such an exciting concept to visualize all these places where parents may have hesitated to take their kids, or even have adults participating in, different activities and play places because they just couldn't, or they didn't know how, if it was accessible or possible. And the fact that you're including other people's feedback too, and you have a board, and it's not just people within your home that are on an emotional level with this, right? And it's a little bit harder to see clearly sometimes. The fact that you have a board of people outside of your home and you're asking for feedback is great, because you're right. I mean, we are only individuals, and asking for feedback and help outside of ourselves is how we grow. Yes. And how our businesses and nonprofits and all the things expand when other people, give us their creative input.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting. I can't wait to see these forthcoming. When are they installed yet, or is the first couple still forthcoming?
One has been delivered to Hobart. They're talking installation early this week. So I'm waiting because I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
So that'll be our first one. And then the others are, we have 5 others being currently printed. So
Very cool.
yes.
And then what about additional fundraising for future boards or more throughout the area and even just broader in the country?
Well, we have come up with kind of our own goal that when we go into a city, the nonprofit will pay for the first 3 boards in that community. And then after that, we try to find as many local sponsors as we can. We usually ask the city members, hey, who are big donors in your community? Who works well with you? But then we're also going around to mom and pop shops. And that's our job, is to go and ask people and tell them what we're about. And again, spread that awareness. I know we will be at the Dare Golf outing this beginning of August. As part of awareness there and trying to do some fundraising with them. They've graciously allowed us to come to their event.
Where is that event at?
It's going to be at Yuki Country.
Okay.
Yuki Golf Club, Country Club.
Country Club, I guess. We'll get corrected if we're wrong, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we are just trying to find other ways to bring in some funds now that we're spending. We definitely were overwhelmed with the first pajama prom, but I think we are going to move forward with that every year as our big fundraiser in Crown Point. We've talked about moving it to other cities if we're getting a lot of funds to go to that area. I know we're doing the Hobart City Parade this year. Since we are going to be putting all those boards in there this year, we're hoping to get some local sponsors and just more awareness out there by being in the parade and letting people see, hey, when you see the signs up, here we are, it's us. So we're working. We brainstormed some ideas. We don't have anything else concrete yet.
Well, I think that's a lot. I mean, especially with how new your nonprofit is. I mean, it's definitely a passion and honor project, right? That is clearly like overflowing with love in so many ways. And because of that, that's what's escalating it forward. I feel like you feel like that's all we have, but like, my gosh, that seems like so much to try to organize in such a short amount of time. I just love what you're doing, Rachel. And I am just so heartwarmed for all that you're creating from Emberly's life here, from her experiences, and how you're just helping other people as a way to honor her. It's just so magical. It really is. I hope you feel in your heart how important this work is. And I hope that everybody just sees it, and the more awareness, the better. So I am excited to share this conversation. Tell us what else you would like us to know before we end today.
I think that when you find yourself, in something difficult, I think it's good to remember that it doesn't stay that way forever. My husband said it great to me the one time of, we're never going to be happy again, but we're going to find a lot of joy in our life. And I thought that was a great way to say it, because if there's a part of you always missing and happiness is gone, and that could be true for you in any loss you've had. But just thinking, okay, you're right. I can find joy in my days. I can find joy in just life going on around me, whether it's I'm just going for a walk and enjoying the sounds, or going for ice cream with my kids, just finding some joy. And I think it's important for people to remember that, because I think sometimes you get stuck in this rut, in this hole, and it's going to last months, it could last a year or 2 years, but I think when you do what feels right for your heart, whether it's just sharing an item or sharing a story or doing something that your loved one love to do too, I think you'll feel so good, and you'll know that it feels good. So just keep doing those things, and hard things are hard, and I think that a lot. I think man, I wish I could find someone who's going through what I'm going through, because I want to share what I'm going through. But just because someone isn't going through what I'm going through, people are going through their own hard things. So, it could be, I know I have a family member who was taking her daughter for treatments, had to go to a hospital, just needed help. And it was the hardest thing she had ever done. And it was frustrating at times for me to think, oh my gosh, wait, like things are really way harder than this. But everybody has their own heart. And I think for me, that was a learning curve too, of learning, hey, you got to have this empathy because everybody's got something going on. So just being kind and remembering that, and remembering just to find the joy in your everydays.
That was so perfectly said. Thank you for that. Rachel, tell us how we can stay connected to Emberly's Smiles and how we can best support it. Where can we find you?
Sure. You can find us on Facebook at Emberly Smiles. We also have a link there to our website. It's emberlysmiles.org. On our website, you'll see pictures of Emberly. You'll get to read about our mission. That's where we'll have our events posted. We'll also have them on Facebook, but you can see some pictures there from our past events, our past sponsors. And there's a link there if you'd like to sponsor a board or make a donation. So we definitely have those ways for you to communicate with us there.
And for our listeners, all of those ways to connect with Rachel will be in our show notes. So definitely take a closer look there and make sure that you follow, share the pages, and just spread it as far and as wide as is possible to just branch out and share this amazing cause, Emberly's Smiles, of a very courageous girl and family, and the very important work they're doing moving forward. Thank you, Rachel, for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Rachel and her family are proof that you never know what you are capable of until facing the impossible is the only choice you have. Rachel, thank you for this important conversation. Thank you for feeling safe enough in this space and for trusting me with this important piece of your heart. Let us all continue to look for the joys every day, because like her husband said, there is a lot of it still to be had. Emberly, along with all of those we have lost, are with us every day. We need only pause and pay attention to feel them with us. Keep honoring your loved ones. Keep finding purpose in your pain and healing in your hearts. It all matters. Everything we do every day with every breath matters. Links to support Emberly's Smiles and learn more about Rett syndrome are in the show notes. Don't forget to share this episode, rate and review, and of course, please subscribe. Until next time.